Hello, the humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you're lucky enough, as always, to be doing it to and upon. I am Bushka on Blitz, and you are back for another exciting bit of the hot salts. This is E100 time, the big review. A lot of people have been asking for this tank forever and a day, and I've been staying well clear of it because it never liked me, and I didn't like it. But we've fallen in love again. This is what is affectionately termed the Iron Giant, or sometimes hated upon by calling it Hitler's Derpasaurus. Either way you look at it, the tank's certainly unique, and it's got a lot going for it, and a few very big negatives as well. But before I get too far into the vinegar strokes, I want to talk a little bit about this being a patron-sponsored post. Patron is a big part of the channel. I'm trying to make it a bigger part. Basically, if you sponsor the channel, you go along and you put yourself up for $1 per video, like a review or a how-to guide or something. I don't obviously put money towards the official videos or the content or the little silly things, the derp diaries and stuff like that. But this is a patron-sponsored post. For all those wonderful humans, you know who you are. Thank you very, very much for making this a little bit easier to get through and making my life a little bit easier with the missus by, in no small way, contributing towards the benefit of the channel. That's enough. You'll see a little link there if you want to go forward and have a look at sponsoring the channel yourself. But onwards and upwards. The E100, a lot of people wanted this review for a very, very long time. A bit of backstory on this. As you can probably see there, I have not touched this tank in aeons. You'll note I'm well down on the ammo count there. I've not got a full ammo rack, and I'm running a toolbox, a rammer, and a gun laying drive. What was I thinking? I didn't have a full ammo loadout because I don't believe I had a premium account when I was running this the first time around, and I couldn't afford the bloody ammunition on the thing. I was hopeless. Jesus. Have a look at it. It's a great looking tank. It's pretty unique. It's special. Straight away, the biggest positives and negatives. Biggest positive, it's got so much metal on it, so much armor, and it throws so much metal in. Look at the size of the weapon. Massive, big caliber weapon. Biggest negative, look at the size of the tank. The current meta at the moment at Tier X is lots and lots of rusky mediums and very much a mobile gameplay style. You are big and you are very, very visible. You have horrific camouflage. You're going to get hit from everywhere. And once you get a person on either side of this tank, there is just no hiding the huge weak point, which is being as big as a barn. You are literally the easiest target on the field to hit. And that being the case, you don't have the mobility to hide that weak spot. You can't jaunt around and swing your turret quickly. Your turret traverse and your traverse on the actual tank are abysmal. It's 20 degrees of traverse, 16 degrees of turret traverse, 18 degrees, sorry, of turret traverse, which is horrific. And your 30 kilometer an hour top speed is a fiction. You're not really going to be moving along at 30 kilometers an hour very often at all. You're an enormous tank. If someone's stupid enough to run into you, which, trust me, will happen, people will ram you when you're on low hit points, they'll die. They will do enormous damage to themselves. The only tank you really have to worry about ramming is a mouse. Don't ram a mouse. Apart from that, everything else is open season. We'll have a look at the armor profile as we move forward. But I just want to point out, my equipment layout there is absolutely horrific. It should be, nowadays, I would be running rammer, vents, and vertical stabilizer. Vert Stab is a lot more successful at minimizing the biggest negatives on this tank, which is basically your traverse, your reload, your aim time, all the bad gun stats that come with being a Derpasaurus. And Vert Stab helps you start from a better position, whereas gun laying drive's only going to help your aim, your aim time, decrease it by a flat 10%, and that's it. Vert Stab's going to help on the bloom on traverse. Vert Stab's going to help on the aim time itself as well, because the reticle is going to start, the bloom is going to start at a little bit of a smaller rate. The Vert Stab is going to help you with firing when you are actually moving the tank forward, all those things. However, Getting vert, stab and rammers on this is 1.2 million credits. And as you can see there, I have 529,000 credits to my name. I did actually, after looking at this, change up the toolbox to events. But I've only done this after playing 30 odd games that I needed to get review footage for. Now, there's a certain art to driving this tank, and I certainly didn't have it when I started out. And you get in it, and if you're a new player, you feel invincible because the thing is freaking massive. And if you run into games where you're against a lot of low pen opponents, you will be able to do the business. It starts with the E75's 12.8 centimeter KWK 44. Now, that's a fine weapon in and of itself. 4.62 rounds per minute, 246 millimeters of pen on your standard AP, and 311 on your APCR. 0.38 dispersion, 2.9 second aim time. 460 is your average alpha there, and that's fine and dandy because you are a peekaboo tank. The E75 is a peekaboo side scraper. However, when you move onwards and upwards, you get the gun that makes this tank, makes the Derpasaurus what it is, the 150mm KWK L38. Now, you only got 3.49 rounds per minute, and your actual penetration on your AP drops to 235. And that's the reason why you will spend a lot of money on heat in this tank. I don't bother to F around with the AP too often. When I need to pen, I'll go to heat, and I don't make any bones about it. I don't really care if you guys don't like gold spamming or whatever you want to call it. It's part of the game. Either deal with it or get off the merry-go-round. 640 alpha, that's where it's at. Massive aim time, 2.9. Massive dispersion, 0.40. It's one of the reasons you really need to be running vert stab. But 640 alpha and 960 alpha on your HE, and there are tanks you can pen with high explosive. The side skirts are just above the tracks of a Leopard PTA or a Type 61 or a Leo 1 and all those kind of things. The back of American tanks like the E5, the M103 and the T32 and the T110E3 and the T110E4. As you get to know the tanks that you can do the business on sideways, the side skirts of a Tiger 2 or an E50 are generally pretty fun as well. Like, you will absolutely pound people with the HE on this tank. And that makes it because you are a peek-a-boom monster. You want to drive out, drop 600 alpha on top of someone or 640, and then pull back, and all the while just chuckle to yourself merrily because you've got to do the business when you get the chance, because the enemy will get shots at you from the side. You will be the last one to the front line. I mean, it's you and T95s at the back trying to do, and the occasional mouse. Like, you don't see many of those. But what about the actual armor profile? Looking at the E100 here from the perspective of an IS-4 firing heat. Most tier 10 tanks will be able to pen you with their premium ammunition, no worries whatsoever. There's a few very, very random exceptions. The issue you're going to have is that against lower pen tanks, you are almost invulnerable. Your lower glacis, the front lower glacis, like most German tanks, like most tanks in the game, is your big weak point. And like a lot of German tanks, you've got your engine behind it. So you're going to catch fire. It's going to be a transmission or your engine or something like that quite a bit in these tanks. But the real issue you're going to have is versus top tier tanks, you're going to have to learn to angle your turret. Now, people will pen your cheeks. It is where you will get penned frontally the most. If you do not turn your turret at, say, a 30-degree angle to the target you're facing or that is trying to shoot at you, you will get penned straight through those cheeks. You can see the white parts there. They are penetrations. 96% chance of penning either side of the gun mantlet, all over there and on your lower glacis. The trick in this tank, as you can see, is when you turn the turret far enough to the right or the left, it changes from blue to white and white to blue and such. And you basically want to get that turret on an angle where it's not an easy pen, front or side. Hard to do, takes experience, and it's one of the reasons that this tank is not as noob friendly as you would think. That simple thing of turning your turret and angling your turret slightly away from your target will save thousands of hit points every fight if you do it correctly. And it's the like that one simple trick You know, bankers hate him. Fitness instructors hate them. This one simple trick will help you. Pick up more chicks, etc. Whatever. I don't care. Your side skirts are heat-eating monsters. You've got tracks, you've got side skirts, you've got big bits of armour all over the place. If people are silly enough to fire heat and a HE into the side of this tank, then it's their own problem, because it won't pen. It'll go straight into the sides of the tank and it'll disappear and do 0 damage. That is really the key with this tank. You have to side scrape, you have to angle off targets. When you're in the open field, you have to angle a tank severely, and you can over angle it because you have so much armor on the sides of this thing that the guys that have to fire heat to penetrate it will have to fire heat into an area where they cannot pen. You can put shots through the drive wheel area. If you're ever in doubt with like a mouse or an E100 or an IS7 and you don't think you can pen it anywhere and you don't have shots on it, try and go through the drive wheels, that very front corner. It's always the weakest spot predominantly on most tanks like IS7s, E5s, whatever. If you're desperate, try and go through a drive wheel. The worst thing that'll happen is you won't pen, but you'll generally at least track them, which will help in a lot of cases. But you can try and go through drive wheels. I think the only thing we can really do is do a little bit more gameplay and show you, but before we go any further, have a look at the profile. That's the E5, the IS4, the IS7, the 215B. Have a look at the size of the E100. It's freaking enormous. Because you're slow, you'll get spotted really easily. People will put shots into the side of you. It's where you bleed hit points. It's very hard not to bleed hit points in this tank once it comes down to a 1-on-3 or a 2-on-4 or a 3-on-5. Because when you get medium tanks to your flanks, which is the current meta in this game, you end up copping shots. You just simply can't ignore it. We're going to have a look here at Canal. And I'll tell you something else. I struggled this tank to get it up to 50% when I first got it. I nearly sold it a bunch of times. I think I might have actually sold it and bought it back, which took a lot of grinding of premium credits to... Anyway. One of the reasons I sold it was because I was way too aggressive and I would push forward too often and get smashed from the flanks, and I really didn't understand the meta and what was going on, but that's what was happening. Nowadays, I find that as the medium game has taken over and the meta has changed into following the mediums on the flanks, quite often smashing their meds and winning the game that way, you are the last tank up, and as such you're almost the rear guard and the first tank to get hit by anyone that flanks or goes down the middle. And you'll see what I'm saying here. It happens here, and I have to turn to face, and when I turn to face, of course, I leave myself open to shots on the other side, and you'll find situations where it's very much almost like a risk assessment. You're basically looking at whether or not you're going to take more damage from one side or the other, and you have to make that decision and make calls based on that. And you'll see how I'm angling my tank away from that Object 140, and I really want to make sure that he does not get shots on my side. And we derp a bit of heat there onto the side of the Jagdpanzer E100. I'm driving forward, trying to keep my turret at all times angled. I don't point until I'm ready, and you'll see here something that's a really favorite target. T44s, T54s, you will ammo rack a lot of those kind of Russian mediums, because 150 millimeters will touch a lot more ammo rack than a 100 millimeter gun will. This is what I'm talking about. We now have a medium behind us, and we've got an Object 704 behind us as well. Everyone else is pushing forward and ignoring this. We're going to pump into the IS7 here, and you'll see big doses of alpha. We've got no choice though, and as we turn, we're going to get hit and we're going to expose ourselves, but we cannot just leave the back door open to an Object 704 and a Russian medium. Now we're firing heat, sucks to be me. You'll see how I've got the turret slightly angled away from my target. I'm giving them side skirts, and he bounces off the turret because he doesn't have that clear cheek to aim at. If you take one thing away from this review as an E100 driver, that's got to be it. Do not look directly at the target until you're ready to fire at the target. And you can see I'm still doing it here. We've loaded a HE, he's reversing though, he wants no part of us. And we have now got rid of the shot from the rear. So we don't have to worry about that. we can move forward, and we're still taking hits. You just don't have the mobility. You've got 2,300 hit points. They actually nerfed the hit points on this tank, which I think is a joke. One of the ways Wargaming balances is they balance on overall stats. They don't balance for good players. They balance on overall stats. So that's actually quite fair, but at the same time, it means that if a tank gets up to just above that, they'll balance it down, even when it's not particularly overpowered. And I don't think the E100 is overpowered at all. I actually think it's a lovely blended tank, and it's an interesting and fun tank to play. It is also the king, as far as I'm concerned, of 4K losses. You can do a whole lot of damage, but when you get stuck with a couple of good drivers at the end, they'll simply go one either side of you, and you just can't do anything about it. Now, you'll note here, I am simply not going to go over there. I am the sucker drawing the IS-7's attention, so the E75 can come around the back and do the business. And I actually think this game, my wife asked me for some help, and I just walk away from the tank and let the E75 finish. That's right, she's asked me for help, so I switched to heat. Not my last bit of heat into the IS-3. Say good game to Sint, who's a subscriber, and then walk away from the E100, and we win that one. Just leave. Yes, darling, coming. Yes, I'm coming. There you go. Let's have a look at the results, because we do win that. We did just over 4K, I think. 4,584. And we got a Confederate, so we hit a lot of people. You see what I mean about being the last one up? Now, here's one that's a really interesting one. I'm pretty sure we lose this one. I love the new camo, by the way. How cool is the new camo? I'm running it on the E100. It's obviously pointless on heavy tanks, and I don't run it on heavy tanks because of the added value to my sniping. I run it because it looks great. I mean, this kind of Russian front, beat up, dusty white camo look is fantastic. I'm a big fan. Now, Snake Eyes is up there. He is in trouble in the E50M. We've got a whole bunch of big slow Derpasauruses, and poor old Snake is trying to hold that spot on his Pat Malone. Not very much fun at all. You can see there we smacked one into the edge of that Rusky. Something else about this tank, I carry quite a bit of HE on it. It is well worth doing. Anytime you have to hit an unhittable tank like an E3 frontally at range, or you get the shots on weak, and I think you'll see it here on a Leopard, you want to be running with some HE, because the HE can really be a game changer. One of the guys in the opposite team, I think, is Reese's Respect Quickie Baby, something like that. He's like a 79% player. So we knew we were in trouble here right from the get-go. We've gone up the top, and we're just trying to make a living for ourselves up the top here. You've only got 7 degrees of gun depression, which isn't exactly overwhelmingly fun. There is an FV, there he is, the 183. We don't want a bar of him. That's why we're not popping up, because he is basically going to smack us. The rest of the team is falling around us, however, and we don't have a lot of choice. So we've got to go over the top at some point and have a crack at this Jagdpanzer E100 and the good old STB-1. It was a STB-1, sorry, Japanese medium, not a Russian medium. Into the Jagdpanzer E100 we go. Putting damage into him. We're basically trying to get something done before the rest of their team turns up, but you know, you can't always win these things. You'll note all the angles I'm rolling, and the cheeks of the Jagdpanzer E100 are every bit as weak as the cheeks of the E100 itself, but they are not quite the large target that the E100's cheeks are. Everyone's fallen apart here. Snake didn't have much choice. He had to go up, but the rear guarders just absolutely died in the pants. Leopard 1, load up the HE, boys and girls. E50M coming. We've got HE. We managed to dodge that shot. You'll see how I'm always angling towards, you have to pick a poison here, and I've angled towards the E50M, and I've started my turn before he got there. The side skirts of the Leopard 1 should be an odd 900 odd shot. Wait for him to turn. There you go, 999. Nearly wiped him. A slightly better roll we would have had him. Look at the shot here. This is a hell of a shot from our friend, the 76% odd player. We are angling towards the E50M again. I mean, it's a great brawler. If you can get up close like this, you can smack everyone about. Look at that. Where did that come from? Reese's Respect Quickie Baby, hats off to you, my friend. I think we had a bit of a chat afterwards in this one. I had a bit of a giggle because that was a hell of a shot. Absolutely incredible with the FV215B 183s. Roos, there he is. Gun, not a very easy shot to pull off at all. You'll see there, 79.89. So always up against it there. And the 183 has been buffed to hell. I've seen a lot more people driving that tank lately since the buff where they fixed up the gun handling, and it's made an enormous difference in that tank. Chapos and the boys are back on board with that one, and I may have to rebuy it after giving it an absolute panhandling in the review stages, and saying basically that, you know, it gets penalised with gun handling and penalised with mobility, penalised with camouflage and penalised with armour. It's all a big joke. You've got to give it something. They buff the gun handling, and it's turned it into a very fun tank that does a hell of a lot of damage. So I'll probably be rebuying the 183 at some future point and redoing a review. But until then, that's probably another 8 or 9 million credits away, so it won't be happening anytime soon. You can see here, there's an E100. That's what it looks like when you see something that big coming across. And you'll note too, there's quite a few games where I'm soloing this, and I wanted to play it solo simply because when I started playing it, I was playing it solo. I wanted to see if it had improved, it was just me or it was a tank or whatever. There we go, we pumped the E100 again, and you can see in the right situations where it's just hidden and it pops out and gives up a big dose of alpha, it's a hell of an effective tank. The main problem I have with it is it's so slow that often teams are just dead by the time you get there, and it's one of the problems driving a thing like a T95 also. It can be an and yeah, that's another problem. The fact that you are the Derpasaurus, sometimes your rounds just do not go anywhere near the intended target. We switch up to heat there and finish him off. Behind this rock, we're side scraping out. This is side scraping, boys and girls. I know there's an FV4202 up there, but he does not have heat. He only has Hesh. So you'll see I angled my turret away there and copped 2 quick bounces in succession. And we're doing it constantly. Always angling that turret, which means that FV4202, I know his penetration numbers aren't that crush hot. He's got, what, 268 on his APCR, and he's got 235 on his Hesh. He is not going to be going through the front of the turret if I angle it correctly. And we're using this rock basically as our safe house, and we're not coming out until we're ready to fire. This is where the E100 is really lovely, where you've got something that you can side scrape off or use as effective cover, and you only dump out little bits of alpha whenever you need to. This is a loser's game for those guys. They are in the wrong situation, the wrong spot, and altogether the wrong map for this kind of play. We now know that there's an FV4202 over there somewhere, or if he's dead already, I can't remember. The object, we finish him as well. 3rd kill for Zidane. There's the FV. He couldn't pen me, so he had to move. And we move on up, roll out, and I don't know if we get the kill on this guy. No, we do. Yeah, so this game, just a shade under 5k. And you'll note, like, hopefully in the next few reviews, there'll be a bit more solo gameplay just to keep up with things. I'm trying to use show.tv to record some things on the move. It's not really working for me. It's just not good enough quality, and the sound at the moment on the beta is still rubbish. So you'll note why that's why a lot of the games don't have sound. But I had to make a decision between actually putting a review up and not putting a review up, because I can't be asked redoing the gameplay. And yeah, so you've got the beta of Shao recording for a lot of this stuff. Some of it's still streaming to the laptop and the PC. Anyway, here we are on Desert Sands. Now, this is the last game, and I like this game in particular because it shows, not so much, it's clever play by me. And I don't like tooting my own horn too much, but the reason you can get out on the flanks here with the E100, and in fact do quite well on the flanks in the E100, is if you're smart you can abuse and exploit the dunes and travel down gullies, which negates that great disadvantage that you have quite often of being hit from the sides and having clear shots into the sides. Now, even when I'm coming across here, I'm always expecting to be spotted, and I'm always angling my turret slightly to where I think incoming fire is going to come from. So you can see that right there is coming on the left. You don't want to push too hard too often with this tank. There we go. Smacked the pants off that poor old T62. If you push too hard, you can end up stuck with flanks covered on either side, and then you're in real strife. Now, the IS-7 in this game is a great help and a very big assistance. Between the two of us, we account for most of the damage to the enemy team. But the IS-7 in particular saves my bacon at one point. I make one of those decisions where I have to deal with one flank and I can't deal with the other, and there's just no way around it, and he comes up and helps out. Now, the E5 bounces me. This is just one of the problems with firing AP in this tank. You only have 235 millimeters of penetration. To put that in perspective, you've got about the same pen on your AP that a British Hesh firing monster will have, like the FE4202. Again, HE waiting for those side flank shots to become available. There you go. Absolutely spanked some big numbers into that Leo, and this is where the IS-7 comes up and gives me a great hand. You'll note here I'm now turning away from the Leo, making that swing around, so at least then I can choose someone to hit, and I move forward towards the IS-7, back him off. The other IS-7 comes in from the flank and gives me a big hand, and that was the reason I reckon we won the game. He saved me a lot of hit points there. So I'm moving up and out now in the dunes. You'll note we're not getting a lot of flank fire. If this was on most maps and we were dealing with close-in brawls like this, everyone else would have free shots into us, and it's just not the case. And that's simply put, exploiting a game mechanic. If you can see ridges and mounds, they're really great for this tank. We've got heat, but we bounce off the front. It's just simply too big an angle. It's an auto bounce off the front of that T62A. He's got to go though, so we're going to push forward, leave the IS-7 and the FE215B 183 as a big deterrent there, and move and get rid of this T62A. That's the big money shot. And coming up, you're going to see another HE round, and they're cheap money for jam shots. If you've got HE, always use it on the back of American tanks. It's really, really, really effective. We couldn't really get shots in there. There you go, into the IS-7. Go over the hill. The FE215B 183 is a huge deterrent. No one wants to go around that corner if they don't have to. The E5 is going to back up, and we've already seen, our eyes are big as donuts here. We can see exactly what's on offer. Boom. Ooh, happy days. So, great tank, fun tank, a tank that I was very low on at times in the past, and not deservedly so, because even after the nerfs, it's got a little bit of a nerf in the last couple of patches. Dropped a few hit points, the gun got nerfed a touch. Ryuga there, very, very helpful. Even after all that, it's been lovely. It's been really lovely to see the tank come on, and the fact that I can now drive it effectively, it's been a nice little thing for me to know that, you know, you picked the game up a touch. So as always, this was a patron-sponsored post. If you are interested in helping out the channel, please do go and have a look at sponsoring via Patreon. We've got the 215B 183 review coming up very, very soon as well. Then we'll be doing the STB1 and the T110 E4. E4 might come before, not sure, depending on video availability. The E4 was another surprise packet. I think it is an absolute gem. They've buffed the gun handling like they buffed the gun handling on the 183, and it's made that tank all over. I'm a big fan now. Then I'm going to start working my way down through some other reviews, namely things like the IS, the T29, the T32, some of that lower tier stuff. Yeah, so heaps coming up on channel, boys and girls. There's some especially interesting stuff dropping very soon on channel, official stuff. I hope you like it. It's going to be a pretty much game-changing thing for World of Tanks Blitz. Anyway, I'm Bushka on Blitz. You've been lovely. As always, stay safe on the battlefield. Join up to the Facebook, www.facebook.com/Bushka on Blitz. And bye for now, onwards, upwards, etc., etc., etc.